Okay, we're going to begin. We're holding Kohelet towards the end of Perek Zayin, chapter 7. Now he begins to explain a little bit of what he said previously as to why there are certain tzaddikim, certain righteous people who don't have it easy, even though they're righteous. We covered that in the last shiur as to why certain things happen. We did say that we don't know all the reasons for those situations that appear to be very perplexing. The righteous should have an easier life because they're good, they conduct themselves properly, and the wicked should not have beracha, should not have blessing. Nevertheless, sometimes we see the contrary, and we are puzzled. It's perplexing. We don't understand why things are like that. And even though we don't understand everything, there are certain explanations that are given in the Kabbalah, which we explained last time, that it has to do with mazal, it has to do with reincarnation of a previous lifetime, and not everything is determined by what happens in one's lifetime. If one does something wrong, it could be that he won't pay for it in this lifetime. It could be he will pay for it upstairs, it could be in a different lifetime. And the same is true with reward for one's good deeds. It's not necessarily seen in one's lifetime. As the rabbis tell us, "En sachar va'onesh ba'olam hazeh," reward and punishment, which is an important principle in Judaism that we very much believe in, that there are consequences to one's actions. Nevertheless, you don't always observe the consequences. You don't see them or experience them in your lifetime. Otherwise, it would interfere with free will, as we said. One of the reasons we don't see it is because Hashem wants us to have complete, pure free will. If things would be obvious, then it wouldn't make too much sense. Everybody would be doing the right thing. So in order to allow for complete free will, certain things are not revealed to us. Certain things are not apparent. Certain things have to be concealed, including Hashem himself. Sometimes he intervenes. Sometimes he does get involved directly, and that is when we see open miracles. However, now he explains just a little bit more. He elaborates on tzaddikim. Even though we said a righteous person is something that you're not born with, it's something that you acquire throughout your life. You have chosen a certain way of life. As the Torah says, "Uvacharta b'chaim," choose life, choose to do the right thing. And one who does choose to do the right thing, Hashem will help him. And he will, B'ezrat Hashem, be a good man, a good husband, a good friend. He will be a tzaddik. Nonetheless, even though person does strive and aspire to be a righteous man, no one is perfect. And that's what he begins to explain, that you may find tzaddikim that make mistakes. And I've been asked this question more than once. How could it be that this rabbi committed such a sin? A rabbi, whether it was stealing money, whether it was doing something else that was very wrong, how could it be? He's a rabbi. And the simple explanation, the simple answer is what? Whoever told you that rabbis don't have a yetzer hara? Whoever told you that there's no evil inclination with people who are wise and knowledgeable? On the contrary, the rabbis tell us, "Kol hagadol mechavero yitzro gadol mimeno." Whoever is greater than his friend, in other words, whoever is a bigger tzaddik, his yetzer will be more powerful. He will have more challenges. He has to do battle with his own yetzer, and everybody has their own yetzarim. So it is not necessarily a surprise to find people who are supposed to be good people, who are supposed to be righteous. All of a sudden we discover that they're dishonest, completely dishonest, and it could be because they have that weakness, a weakness in the area of money, a weakness in the area of women, or in drinking, or in eating, or in laziness. There's a whole list of weaknesses that people may have, depending, of course, on their mazal, depending on what their nisayon is. Everybody has some sort of challenge, which is part of his mission in life, to overcome. So that is what Shlomo Melech reveals to us over here. I have some news to tell you. Ki adam en tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov velo yecheta. There's no such a thing that a person, an individual, any human being in this world should only do good and never do bad. It's not possible for people to never make a mistake. After all, we're human, and because we're human beings make mistakes. We're not perfect. Because human beings are not perfect, it is just common. Actually, it's not so. It should not come as a surprise that one will make a mistake. And unfortunately, in relationships, husband and wife, sometimes people take it too seriously. Oh, how come you did this? How come this is this way? You made a mistake. Mistakes happen. And the more we realize that people are not perfect, we have to be accepting of certain mistakes. Certain mistakes, of course, should not be accepted. But mistakes occur. There are no tzaddikim who make no mistakes. Moshe Rabbeinu made mistakes. The Torah says so. Aaron, Shaul, David HaMelech, everybody on their level, of course. And you may ask me, wait a minute, why did Hashem allow them to make a mistake? That's an interesting point, which I just thought about, that in reality, even though Shlomo HaMelech emphasizes this point that human beings are not perfect, the rabbis do tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo machshil et hareshaim, lo noten lehem leikasher. Even their animals, the animals that belong to tzaddikim, Hashem does not allow them to step into the neighbor's field to eat, which would be gezel, stealing. This is the behemah, the animal of the tzaddik, so the tzaddik shouldn't be nichshal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does protect. Raglei Chasidav Yishmor, Hashem does protect his Chasidim, the tzaddikim, from committing a wrong. But that, of course, all depends on if he himself is protecting himself. If one protects himself, Hashem says, you know what? I will protect you. But if a person does not protect himself, he's going to drink and drive, he's going to get in trouble. Right? What do you expect? You drink too much, you won't be able to focus on the driving. So therefore, who does Hashem protect? Those who are really very careful. Very careful. Hashem says, you know what, I'm not going to let you make a mistake. But in general, still, even though tzaddikim generally do not fall because Hashem protects them, Shlomo HaMelech still wants us to remember this point. They can, and they have. And many have. And many were tempted. And many almost failed. In all kinds of areas. Why? Because Adam and tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yachtada. There's almost no one like that. Can just do all the right, perfect, good things and never make a mistake and never fail. What about forgetfulness? Forgetfulness is also something that we all have, and as a result of the forgetfulness, we can make a mistake. As David HaMelech says, Shigiot miyavin. We don't understand why we make certain mistakes. As long as it was not intentional, if something happens unintentionally, it could be for all kinds of reasons. It's still not a good sign. Depending on how serious it is, it's still not a good sign. It means that we have to be more cautious the next time around. So therefore, all he's telling us right now is, first of all, don't expect perfection from anyone, which is a good, important lesson in itself. When it comes to husband and wife, they're coming into a marriage not perfect, and guess what? They will remain not perfect for the rest of their lives. Because they're human beings. And they cannot necessarily be 100% perfect. From time to time, we will say the wrong thing, we will make the mistake, we will forget something, and we have to be accepting of that. Because the reason for michsholim and ta'uyot in life, the basic reason for mistakes and failing is because of imperfection. Because of this, because of imperfection or the potential for making mistakes, the Kabbalah says something very, very powerful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu upstairs is not upset at us for committing a wrong. But he will be upset if we don't attempt to correct the wrong, to do teshuvah on it. That you made a mistake, that you failed, that you did a wrong, it could happen. But don't repeat it too often. And do teshuvah on it. The Kabbalah says Hashem is very upset at those who don't even attempt, make any effort to correct their wrongs, which they're aware of. We say vidui, chatati, ariti, right? As long as we mean it, then it counts. It's something. You feel remorseful, you feel bad, about the past. It means you recognize the wrong. So you're one step ahead. Recognizing the avon, since this is Chodesh Elul, it's good that we're talking about it. Recognizing, identifying what was done wrong is the first step of teshuvah. If a person does not identify, does not understand it, how could he ever correct it 100%? He may feel bad perhaps, but that's not enough because it may happen again. We want to avoid it repeating itself, so you have to recognize it. And once you recognize it very well, hopefully you'll feel bad about it. But you'll be surprised, a lot of people don't get to that. They never learn. They never understand what was done wrong. So whether it's husband and wife relationship, whether it's neighbors, whether it's friends, whether it's between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's important that we come to realize what mistake, what the mistake was, and make efforts to correct it. That it happened, Hashem says, fine, I understand it. You have a Yetzirah which I created for you. But why didn't you try to fix it? Why didn't you learn Sefarim? Why didn't you go to Shiurei Torah? Why didn't you do something about it? For that, there's no excuse. So therefore, now that we understand that it is possible for men and women to commit a wrong, to make a mistake, the rabbis tell us it's always a good idea, always. Even if you did not make an obvious mistake, lefashpesh b'maasim. Always examine yourself. And examining is not once a year. Bi'ur hametz is once a year, that's true. But don't think that teshuvah is once a year. Teshuvah should be done every night before you go to sleep. There's something called cheshbon nefesh. And cheshbon nefesh is something that should be done from time to time. It doesn't say every night, but the Kabbalah does emphasize this on a daily basis. You may not have the time, you may be tired, but before you say Kriyat Shema Lamita, if you say the entire Nusach, it does contain vidui. After all, people can go to sleep and never get up the next morning. So if they say the vidui, the confession, the teshuvah, that they are requesting, it's meaningful. And they go to sleep, and hopefully they won't have any nightmares. If they say the Kriyat Shema Lamita with kavanah, with the proper intention. It's an incredible prayer if it's done properly, very powerful. Especially for men, which I can't explain right now. But for men, it has a tremendous amount of strength that they can derive from the Kriyat Shema Lamita. But even for women, it makes a difference how you go to sleep. There are people who fall asleep watching TV. There are people who fall asleep listening to the radio, reading a novel. That's not a good way to fall asleep. To fall asleep, learning, reading a good story, saying after Kriyat Shema, that's the best way. That's why if you say the bracha of a mapil, if you say the entire Kriyat Shema, then you shouldn't even talk to anyone after that. You shouldn't really do almost anything but go directly to sleep. It makes a difference. So, bishpusha ma'asim, examining one's deeds, or cheshbon nefesh, is always a good thing, only because it's very possible that during that day we may have done it wrong. Why let it accumulate? Why let it go on the record? Why wait till Rosh Hashanah? Get rid of it immediately. Erase it. Erase it completely. And that can happen depending on what avon it is, what sin it is. Simple teshuvah, feeling regretful about it, committing oneself not to do it again, could be sufficient depending what it was. So, recognizing that we're not complete tzaddikim, recognizing that even tzaddikim make mistakes, therefore, tefashpesh b'maasim, examine yourself from time to time at least, or if possible every night, so that one should always be clean from sin. Since tzaddikim make mistakes, and since unfortunately sometimes it's very embarrassing, that is why the Torah publicizes it. The Torah actually documented the few that I mentioned to you of what happened. Whether it was Shlomo HaMelech himself who was misled by the many women he married, or Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah actually publicized it. It wrote it down. You know what it is? To write down what the brothers did to Yosef, what Yehuda did with Tamar, even though Mashiach came from it. Still, the way it came about, right? The various incidents that are recorded in the Tanakh that are occurring with great people, for what reason is it publicized? Why shame them even more? Just to remind us that even the great people have made a mistake. And guess what they did? They did teshuvah. Look at the teshuvah that David HaMelech does, even though what he did was not necessarily a sin, the rabbi said. She was meant for him. Right? She was meant for him, Bathsheba. Just that the way it came about was not exactly 100% appropriate. But she was meant for him. Nevertheless, he did teshuvah, and he cried, and he said, V'chatati lenegdi tamid, and he was always concerned before he went to battle that there should be no kitrugim, accusations against him, because when a person goes to a makom sakana, dangerous place, there can be accusations. Right before a person gets married, right before a person goes into a high position, they examine his books. Is he clean or not? We're about to give him this gift. He better be clean. So therefore, he was concerned, David HaMelech, all the time. So it's publicized because we want to see that even they, committed the wrong, but don't give up hope. Al tityaesh biglal zeh, because of that. They did it, and they fixed it. They corrected it. They prayed. They asked for forgiveness, and that is why it's publicized. Lehorot tshuva. As the Rabbi tells us, mikan. From here we learn sheyesh tshuva. Lehorot at teshuvah, to teach us how to do teshuvah. That teshuvah is possible nonetheless. After all, even though it was done, it could be fixed. And therefore, in going back to what we covered last week or a couple weeks ago, when we said al tihi tzadik harbeh, one of the explanations was, don't be overconfident in yourself. Al tihi tzadik harbeh means not only don't overdo it in being strict, overly strict and demanding in halakha and in other areas of life. Al tihi tzadik harbeh also meant don't be overconfident in yourself. It's okay. I can do these things. Nothing will happen to me. I'm safe. No, you're not. There's a lot of things that can happen to anyone, even to the greatest tzaddik. Being exposed to the wrong elements, you can get into trouble. Right? The eyes absorb, and if the eyes absorb something wrong, they can become poisoned, contaminated, and that tum'ah can unfortunately cause tremendous amount of damage, not only to the neshama, but at that moment it can lead a person to sin. So don't take a chance. Don't take any risks. Don't put yourself in a nisayon, because even the greatest tzaddikim would not be able necessarily to survive in this kind of nisayon, this test, this challenge. So therefore, don't be overconfident in yourself. So that's why in other words, this pasuk in some ways explains some of the pasukim before, including this one. Don't be overconfident in yourself, because there is no tzaddik ba'aretz who will always do the right thing and never make a mistake. This pasuk also explains another concept that we spoke about, madua yesh tzaddik oved. Tzaddikim that suffer, tzaddikim that have tremendous losses, financial losses, or chas v'shalom, losing somebody dear to them. It could be because en tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yachta. It could also be because, after all, even though he's a tzaddik, maybe he did commit one sin, and for that one sin, he's in trouble, depending what that sin was. He made a mistake. He ate something not kosher once. That's no good, but that's not as big as a sin as having embarrassed someone in public. Do you know that embarrassing someone in public, en lo chelek l'olam haba, the rabbis tell us, he may lose his entire world to come. He did all the biggest mitzvot, he will lose it in one moment for doing something like that. Embarrassing someone in public. Or lashon hara, especially if he does this many times. That avon becomes supercharged. See, when you do something once, well, okay, it happens, it's bad. But if you do it twice, it's worse. If you do it 3 times, you're out. You're right, strike out. 3 times, that's the California law they say right now, right? You do it 3 times, you strike out. Because it makes sense. It means that you don't care. It means you're not careful enough. It means that you are not doing anything to avoid it. Right? So it means that you can do it again and again and again. When are we going to put a stop to it? So the law says, you're not going to put a stop to it. We're going to put a stop to it. Hashem has another way of dealing with it. 3 strikes and you're out. Obviously, it's a tremendous chilul Hashem. And of course, depending on the individual, depending on how educated and informed he is, as we said before, the more knowledgeable one is, the more he has learned, the more he should realize certain things. Still, it can happen. It can still happen, and as long as he does the teshuvah for it, it's fine. So, if you ever wonder why it's tzaddik oved, what it could be, other than reincarnation, which we already explained, other than mazal, which is tied to reincarnation, it could be some big avon shemekatreg alav, which is accusing him. And you know, kitrugim can be very powerful. Accusations can be very powerful. Somebody asked me, how do we know what is a kitrug? So briefly, we explained in the past that when it comes to mazal, nobody has all the bad mazal. You know, the worst children, the worst wife, the worst job, the worst neighbor, right? There's no mazal like that. At least I haven't seen a person that should have such a bad mazal that everything is bad in his life. And never did he have a good moment. And there's no such thing as a great mazal, that everything is perfect, everything is good. The best wife, the best kids, the best home, the best job, all the money, all the comforts, no lawsuits, no headaches, no problems. Doesn't exist. In Yiddish, they say, Jeder eine mit seinem Päckele. Every human being has his bundle, his package. He has a good wife, devoted wife, but he has a difficult child. He has great children, a good wife, but he has a difficult job, or a difficult boss, or a difficult, husband, or a difficult this. Everybody has something. Or the husband is good, but the husband is not healthy, and they have to go to the hospital all the time. Everybody has something. Nothing is perfect. So mazal has its good and has its things that are not so good. How does a person know if it's his mazal that's now good, or if it's a kitrug? There's an accusation, or if it's an ayin hara perhaps. The only way you can really tell when it begins to be obvious is when you see things going wrong, all of a sudden, one after another. Let me give you an example. If you're a real estate broker, now what does a real estate broker do? He sells. You give him a listing, and you sell. Okay? What happens if you haven't got listings this year? It could be the economy's bad. Right? It's a seller's market. Right? It's not necessarily a buyer's market. Right? People don't have the money, they're not qualifying, or whatever. So you're not getting listings. So it's not your mazal. Everybody has the same problem, or similar problem. If you get a listing, it's once a year. Is that a kitrug? No. It's not even your mazal. It has to do with the economy. That's it. What's a kitrug? What it can be possibly a kitrug, I'm not going to say guarantee it. A guy, and I got several phone calls about this, by the way. A guy who has signed 10 listings, listen to this, in the last couple of months, Baruch Hashem, 10 good listings, and every single one of them canceled, backed out at the last minute. The buyer backed out, the seller backed out, the lender backed out. Something happened at the last minute, not at the beginning. At the last minute, boom. Here he's all happy. He's getting a listing. 1-2 listings is parnasah for a whole year if you're a broker. 6%, especially if you sell a house in Bel Air, right? So imagine every one of those listings going bad. What's wrong? What could this be? It could be a kitrug, an accusation from Shamayim. In other words, they're very upset and they want him to get a message that something he's doing is wrong, something that he did was wrong. Otherwise, how is he going to learn? There are many ways to teach a lesson. It could be that, it could be in other ways too, but I'm giving you an example of a possible. I'm not guaranteeing that example is a kitrug, but it can easily be one, because that's the signs of it. The signs of it is when everything is going wrong. Everything, it could be everything in his business. It doesn't mean that everything is collapsing. His health is collapsing, his marriage, chas v'shalom. It doesn't have to be that everything collapses. But it could be that one important area of mamonot, of finances, which is easier to get than health. Chas v'shalom, we should never be hit in a health way. Money comes, money goes. Health is much more problematic if chas v'shalom one's health is in trouble. But money, so it could be a kitrug. So kitrugim can occur because of one particular sin that has not been completely removed, or he's not aware of it. And especially this individual who may be a good neshama, but has done something not right, that one thing, even though it's in this lifetime, it's not up there, it could interfere. It could give him a hard time. All right, so now we more or less explained why certain things happen. Nobody's perfect, and therefore he may have done something wrong. All right, let's go on. גם לכל הדברים אשר ידברו אל תיתן ליבך שלא תשמע את עבדך מקלליך. Now he's going off completely in a different direction. He says, I have some good advice for you. You may hear embarrassing comments from others. You may be insulted from time to time. People may yell at you, curse you, and really give you a hard time. גם לכל הדברים אשר ידברו, whatever you hear from others about you, negative comments, negative remarks, לשון הרע, אל תיתן ליבך. Don't pay attention. אל תתייחס, as we say in Hebrew. Don't pay attention to it. Be strong enough that you should reach the point of שלא תשמע את עבדך מקלליך. Be strong enough that you come to a point that even your own employee, your own servant, you're his boss, that even if he curses you, you smile. You say nothing. That takes a lot of strength and courage from your own servant, your own slave, Avdecha. Why? Why should you not pay attention to these things? Why should you not care about it? It doesn't mean, by the way, that you shouldn't tell him, calm down. It all depends on the circumstances. What it means is don't take it to heart. What it means is don't let it affect you. Why not? First of all, by now, whoever learned Kohelet, by now knows the answer to this. Whoever learned Kohelet until now should know what David HaMelech knew when Shimi ben Gera was cursing him. He was running away from his son. He's in a very difficult situation. Comes along this guy who begins to curse the king. And the guards of the king, of David, want to kill this guy. David HaMelech says, don't touch him. Elokim omer lo kalel. If my ears had to hear those insults, it means that min hashamayim they wanted me to go through this, to experience this. Hashem would not have let it happen that I should experience this unless it's coming to me. So therefore don't touch him right now. Later on, David HaMelech tells Shlomo how to deal with Shimi for being disrespectful of the king, which is a big avon. But right now, don't do anything to him. What I heard is coming to me. What we hear, even if you're walking down Beverly Boulevard and you heard something, people talking, and you actually heard it, Me'ashamayim, you needed to hear that. Whether it was meaningful or not, that's another story. Anything you hear that you did not intend to hear, obviously you can sit down in a group where people are talking Lashon Hara, that's asur to hear. We're not talking about where you volunteer and sit down to hear, to intentionally hear things that you should not hear. Things that happened, they just happened. As we know, nothing just happens. But if it just happened, you should know that it's min hashamayim. And therefore, why take it to heart? Maybe it's coming to you. Maybe the insult and the klala is good for you. It's a kaparat avonot. Why should you respond to it? Teach yourself or train yourself that you should come to the point that even curses from your own employees, your own servants, don't affect you. So, what do we learn from this? That it's a good idea to get used to in life, not to react always, not to take things too seriously when people tell us things that are nasty, that we don't like to hear. And part of the reason is not only because it may be coming to us, but for the following reason. The next pasuk says something incredible. He actually gives an explanation in his own words. Just think about it. Maybe you did it once to others too. Maybe you spoke lashon hara about others once. Maybe you insulted somebody. Maybe you yelled or cursed someone. Think about it. Maybe many times in the past you've done the same thing to others. So why get all excited about it? So therefore, the best thing is for one lehavlig, as we say in Hebrew, to not take revenge, to not yell back, but to be quiet about it. It is not a good idea for one to stoop down to the level of revenge and being upset and yelling back. It shows a lack of chokhmah in a person. It shows that a person is totally does not understand, does not comprehend what is happening. If he only learned a little bit more, he would realize, wait a minute, all this is mishamayim anyway. All of this is happening for some reason anyway. Why should I yell at it? According to the Kabbalah, I think it's actually even mentioned in the Gemara, there are two kinds of Yisurim. One is Yisurim Shel Ahava. Hashem loves a person, He wants to clean him completely, He sends him Yisurim. There's Yisurim for Avonot, for sins. They are real kapara. They are very necessary. If a person mekabel ta Yisurim, if he accepts the Yisurim be'ahava, he's okay with them, he understands that they are kapara, they do their job effectively. Aber imu bo'et ba'Yisurim, if bo'et means to kick, to rebel, to be upset, to be angry at Hashem. Why is this coming? I don't know why it's coming. Then they send him double. Oh, you're upset, you're angry, you don't think it's coming? I send you more. You get a tip, right? You get a second portion. So when something painful happens, it's good to accept it. Then it's effective in serving as a kapara. Chas v'shalom, not to be bo'et. So these kind of situations present themselves occasionally. People yell, people speak lashon hara, people make nasty remarks. Obviously, if it's possible to deal with them in a way where we don't get upset, but we say, you shouldn't say this, it's not right. Obviously we can say that. We're allowed to correct someone's impression if they're wrong, but not to take it to heart and not to chas v'shalom do something which is not right, like yelling back. Next pasuk. Kol zo nisiti b'chokhmah. All these things that I'm telling you right now, and what I've told you up until now, I've tried these things out. I've learned all these things from nisayon, from my own personal experience. Even though he's very knowledgeable, even though he has Ruach HaKodesh, he's also telling us, and he said it several times, that he has examined, he has checked things out, he's tried things out, he's actually analyzed the pros and cons of many, many things in life, in his short life. He only lived to 52. But basically, what will he say today if he got up today? He will tell us, what the cure for all the heart attacks, and all the strokes is? People are stressed out. People are taking things to heart. People are doing things in the wrong way. In other words, he will be able to point out right away a list of things that people are doing wrong. From where does he know that? Because he's seen it. He's examined it. He has seen what food does to people, what drink does to people, what everything. He has seen people take money in a dishonest way, and what has happened to those people or to that money down the road. Because we're looking at somebody who took money dishonestly, and we're saying, wow, he went and bought himself a house, he went and did this. We're only looking in the immediate, short term. We may not have the luxury to see what happens to this individual or to that money 25 years down the road. And he's telling us, I've seen it. I've seen people doing something like that, and of course not seeing beracha, because there's no beracha in money that is taken in a dishonest way. There's no beracha in money that is made on Shabbat. There's no beracha in doing things against the Torah. The problem is we don't necessarily see immediate consequences, so we think he's getting away with it. He has seen it. Everything that he's telling us, he has also seen it. And he's sharing it, of course, with us, and he's telling us, trust me. I know what I'm talking about. I've tested everything. Even though I've tested everything, he says, there are some things that I never was able to figure out, he says. I've tried to be a big chacham in understanding the depths and the mysteries of life. That's what he's talking about here when he says, the rabbis telling us, the rabbis tell us that this includes understanding the reason behind para aduma. A very, very perplexing commandment of taking a red heifer, a red cow, burning it, using the ashes to remove the tum'ah of somebody that became tameh lenefesh adam. In other words, he touched another Jew, a dead Jew. And therefore, the only way to remove that kind of heavy-duty tum'ah is through the red heifer, the ashes of the red heifer. And the ones who are involved in the burning, they become tameh. So here, the ashes make the tameh tahor, the ones involved in the burning and ashes become tameh. So not only is it difficult to understand how the ashes work, but here you also have a contradiction within the same mitzvah. Part of it makes you tahor, part of it makes you tameh. It's a chok. All the chokim in the Torah are the decrees that Hashem gave us that are not necessarily common sense or logical, like honor your parents. Oh, that makes sense. Don't steal. To some that makes sense, to some it doesn't. But to most of us, don't steal makes sense. But there are hukim that are not logical. That's one of them. So Kama, I tried to figure all these things out in the deep Kabbalah. I couldn't figure out everything. And I found Vehire Chokami many. It's still distant from me. In other words, there are things that the human mind cannot fully comprehend. We have to get used to that. We can't know everything. Scientists, as smart as they may be and as good as tools that they may have, will not be able to figure out everything. And he's going to tell us why now. It's not only because our minds are limited. It's not only because of a limitation, which in itself is a big explanation as to why we can't know everything. He says there's something else. Rachok ma shehaya ve'amok amok mi imtza'enu. He says there are things that are way past. Rachok ma shehaya. Something that's in the past, how are you going to figure it out? Now today we have recorders. We can record and we can videotape things that have happened in the past 30, 40, 50 years. What about something that happened 3,000 years ago? Wouldn't you like to see the Kriyat Yam Suf? Not in Universal Studios.
The real one.
Right, the real one, right? How did it happen? What was going on? What will be the answer? You cannot know how it happened because it cannot be reenacted. Scientists don't believe certain things that the Torah say or that we claim, because the way science works is that they have to be able to duplicate it in the laboratory. If they cannot duplicate something in the laboratory, they won't necessarily accept it or believe in it, which is interesting. Here they're saying they want to duplicate, and on the other hand, they're giving us a theory about Big Bangs. Things that they themselves admit it's only a theory. But why make it such a religion? Like this is it, and there's nothing else. When you yourself know that cannot be duplicated. But to them, that's the only acceptable explanation. Creation to them is something too unbelievable, too fantastic. It says, everything else I'll accept except for that. Obviously, they have an agenda. Obviously, they don't want to accept the possibility of a creator or creation. So they're trying to find something. But that something cannot be proven. That's the problem. You cannot prove it. Why can you not prove it? So Shlomo Melech tells us over here, there are certain things you will never be able to prove, you will never be able to understand or know, because Rachok ma shehaya, they're too far back. Even if you analyze, like geologists do, the geological strata, which means the layers, the various layers, and you can say, oh, you see, I see animals that occur on this layer, they lived 10,000 years ago. The next layer, they lived 25 million years ago. They have all kinds of theories about that. And therefore, the lower layer is for sure older than the top layer. What about if there was a Mabul? And the Mabul mixed everything up? They don't consider that, of course. They're looking at things and assuming things were like this all the time. Can you make that assumption that things were always the same all the time from day one till today, 5,771 years? Things were the same, the climate was the same. Even they know the climate was not exactly the same. They talk about today global warming. They talk about the ice age. So they themselves are able to see that the weather, that you are able to see, by the way, certain patterns in certain places that, yes, this place was a lake. Yes, that's possible. That you can tell. But can you know everything? No. Something that happened way in the past is not possible for us to know. And amok, in that which is a mystery, that which is deep, like the Kabbalah, Maseh Bereshit, Maseh Merkavah, that you will never be able to figure out. Hashem has not revealed those secrets. So those secrets, including, by the way, the day of death, the day one will die, or the day of Geulah, the day of redemption, how are you going to ever figure that out? To know it with certainty, it's impossible. So, so I'm telling you I know a lot, he says. I'm sharing with you a lot of chokhmah, but even I, who tried, he says, to figure everything out, I saw that I was hitting a brick wall. A mavoy satum, a dead end, as they say in English. At some point, you have to realize that you can't know more than there is. All right, next pasuk. סבותי אני ולבי לדעת ולתור ובקש חוכמה וחשבון ולדעת רשע כסל והסכלות הוללות. This is a little bit of a difficult pasuk to, what is he exactly trying to say? What is new about this? He's saying that I examined, I did research, I pursued chokhmah and cheshbon, calculations. In other words, I really investigated, I really did a lot of research. That's what he's saying. I went everywhere. Saboti. I went all over the place, all over the world. Do you know that they say that his ships reached till South America? He was there before Columbus. His ships went all over the world. He was everywhere. He brought things from everywhere. He was able to use shadim, demons too, to bring things. So he was very, very familiar with just about everything that existed back then. So he's saying, I examined, I researched, I went all over the place. And I wanted also to know, amongst other things, ladat resha kesel v'sichlut holilut. According to Rashi, at least, Rashi says over here that he's talking about that he wanted to figure out, he wanted to understand לעמוד על סוף דעתה של אפיקורסות וסכלות ההוללות מעורבב ומשועמם שבה. In other words, he wanted to figure out לרדת לסוף דעתה of why people are apikorsim. Apikorsis is a heretic. Why should there be heresy? In other words, he wanted to examine, I think he's talking about a psychological understanding of why people would prefer to be Rashaim. Why people would prefer to be involved in sikhlut or holilut, ignorance, partying all the time. What's the psychological makeup of these people? What's the bottom line of why do they prefer this over doing the right thing, over the chokhmah? He doesn't give an answer to this. He doesn't explain why. He just says, I looked around to try to figure out, there's so much chokhmah, there's so much to be seen and learned. Why would somebody not want this? Why would somebody avoid godliness and choose to be wicked, or to choose to be apikores? The simple explanation for why people choose to be disbelievers is exactly because of holilut, because of ta'avot. They want to enjoy life to their fullest. They don't want to have any limits. They don't want to be deprived. The human being wants to be able to do anything he wants, anything his heart desires. And if you tell him there's a God who says this no, he's uncomfortable, especially if he very much wants it. So deep down, subconsciously, the human mind rationalizes everything, justifies everything, and creates his own religion of what he believes and what he doesn't believe. That's the explanation. As the Meiri says, "Ha'emet hi keveda v'lachen nosea hemuatim." Emet, the truth is heavy. It's heavy to commit yourself to it. That's why those who are willing to carry it are very few in existence. The majority of the people in the world would rather not subscribe to a religion that is very rigid, or a religion that is disciplining us on how to live our life. So anyway, he tries to figure this out. He tries to analyze this. And this problem existed then, exists today as well. That's at least one explanation as to what he's talking about. In his research, he looked at this fact as well, that people, despite the fact that they have so much to observe in life, and so much to learn, and so much to see the beauty and the designing creation, still choose the other side, choose the other road, the other path of resha, of evil, and sichlut, and ignorance. Now we've come to a very, very difficult point. And the reason why I say it's difficult is because the women may take this a little personal. But don't take it personally. He's not talking about you. But he's going to now talk about women. So I call it the difficult point in Kohelet because he's going to take apart this whole area that is sometimes a problem area in life. And this problem area is called women. So therefore, don't take it personal, okay? Just listen and you'll understand the whole thing. All right, but before we begin this important area, let's conclude at least what he recommends, or what is recommended by the rabbis for the mistakes people made, what we've covered till now. Mistakes that people make, the temptations that exist, the fact that certain things are beyond our reach and that we cannot know everything there is to learn. So what should we focus on? What should we do in order to be able to do the right thing, in order to succeed in life, since there's so many temptations and challenges? And how much can we know? Even if we do learn, we don't know everything. The commentaries explain something very, very nice. That Shlomo Melech throughout Kohelet, actually what he's doing is emphasizing the importance and the beauty, the necessity of Chokhmah, of learning. And the Chokhmah is not important only because of knowledge, that you increase your knowledge, you know more, and you're therefore able, hopefully, to survive better in this world, in this life. What the Torah will do, not just any Chokhmah, what the Torah will do when one learns the Chokhmah of Torah, ze yachlish et hachomer shebo, they say. It will weaken the physical in the human body. We are made of afar, we're made of earth, right? We're very physical. In that physicality in the human being is what brings about ta'avot, desires, which leads us to temptations and leads us to all kinds of problems and tzarot. So therefore, even though I'll elaborate a little bit about this later on, what is pointed out over here is that the greater focus of a person should be in learning Torah and learning Chokhmah, because at least when he does so, he will be able to know right from wrong. He will be able to know right from wrong, ma kidai, ma lo kidai. He will know, for example, that stealing is wrong. He will know that being overly eating is not healthy and not good. In other words, at least focus on the things that are obvious. The Chokhmah will enable one to see right from wrong in those areas that things are obvious. So at the very least, do that, because it's not possible for us to know everything. So at least that which is obvious, know and learn during the short period of time that we are here as to what is kidai and what is lo kidai. And I'm going to get back to it a little bit later as to the physicality of one, what that does to him. Here he's just, the commentators only explain that there's so much to learn. Make sure you don't miss out on that which is obvious. You know, some people don't think it's obvious and they make the same mistake over and over again. You know, crime does not pay. Isn't that simple? People don't learn it. Sof ganav litliyah. At the end, the thief will be hanged. They never learned it. But this is obvious. So that's what he's saying. Even though there's many things that are beyond us, learn that which is obvious. Know the difference between what is kidayu and what is lo kidayu. When he talks about cheshbon, by the way, he mentions cheshbon, that he analyzed, he calculated. What is he talking about calculation for? So the commentaries explain that one of the calculations we should all make is schar avera keneged hefseda, right? Or hefsed mitzvah keneged schara. In other words, I'm about to do, chas v'shalom, somebody's about to do an avera. What are you going to gain from it? And what are you going to lose? You're about to forfeit or give up a mitzvah. What are you about to forfeit? And what would you gain if you did fulfill it? Think about it. Think about the pros and cons of everything you do before you do it. In this way, you will stay out of trouble. So that's the cheshbon. One of the ideas behind cheshbon is there are things in life that we need to calculate to know the benefits of doing it or not doing it. Okay, now let's get back to the women. Very important area. Umotzeani mar mimavet et haisha. I find one of the most bitter things in life, more bitter than death itself, is a woman.
She say? She has Mariam Batari.
Yeah.
I keep telling him.
Yeah, now, but you have to listen to the end, okay? You have to listen to the end, because it's not fair to just hear the first pasuk. Okay? What is he talking about? Mar mimavet, it's worse than death? Think about it. Why is it worse than death? What could be worse than death?
Women.
What?
Women.
Yeah, that's no. Worse than death. Death is in olam hazeh. Worse than death means to lose olam haba. There are sins.
What is Olam Haba?
The world to come. The world to come.
The world to come.
Right? Olam haba gan eden.
Uh-huh.
Right? What's worse than losing this, your life here? Losing the afterlife. Not having a share in the world to come. Now, even though he's talking about the bitterness, the hardship of certain women, he's talking about also the tremendous loss that a man can encounter as a result of a certain experience with a woman. He can lose olam hazeh and olam haba. That's a simple explanation. Motzeni mar mimavet et haisha. How could this happen? Well, before he explains how this can happen, why is he emphasizing this? The reason why he's emphasizing this is because what he discovered is what some people are discovering today, even though they won't admit it, that the shoresh hara ba'olam, that the root of all ra in the world is ta'ava, desire. That's the root of all the ra, the bad in the world, is ta'ava, desires, all kinds of desires. But the problem is with excessive desires. Ta'ava mufrezit, as we say in Hebrew. That's the problem. And what has happened throughout history, throughout the ages, is a tremendous pull in the area of ta'avot. And as a result of that, chilul kvod ha'isha, the desecration of the honor of a woman. You know what I mean by that? In other words, by lowering the woman's true honorable value of being a tremendous partner in creation, in bringing about children and future generations, in lowering her status and her value to a prostitute, to znut, to a physical body that she sells. That's what he's talking about. So, in other words, this is just a little bit of an explanation of why he emphasizes it. That what is driving the world is money, drugs, and you know what else. I don't even want to talk about it.
Start with S.
It's all the immorality that exists. So what's new? There's nothing new under the sun. So therefore, this is a driving force because it's ta'avot. It's desires. And as a result of that, the true value of woman has been devalued, depreciated. Now, how does this happen in real life? In real life, he says it happens as follows. The reason why she's so dangerous is שהיא מצודים וחרמים ליבה, אסורים ידיה. She is a trap. She'll trap you. She'll catch you with her heart. Her hands won't let go of you. How many Jews, unfortunately, have fallen in the trap of going out with a goya, a non-Jewish woman? It's hard to get away from it. Once you fall, how are you going to get out? What if you have a child with her, chas v'shalom? It's even more difficult to get out. Why are they all falling? Because that's the nature of the woman, to tempt the man in such a way that she speaks to him with her heart. And the way this woman, of course, not a righteous woman, conducts herself will end up trapping many, many people, many men. And many, many men have fallen in this trap. So therefore, there is a tremendous danger over here of certain kinds of women, of course, certain, not all, that will lead men astray and cause them tremendous trouble in life. Therefore, what does he say? Tov lifnei Elohim yimalet mena. Whoever is good and righteous before God will be spared of such a woman. V'choteh yilachet ba. And a sinner will be caught in her trap. What's this all about? First of all, he's saying two things. There's two kinds of bad women.
Is he talking about non-Jewish women only? Or?
No, everybody. Everybody. There's two kinds of bad women, or two kinds of bad situations. One is the trap. The trap, in other words, the
Tale. In Persian, tale.
Yeah, the trap that is out there that can be set up by any woman to entice, to seduce a man. Or, and she's bad, of course, because she's leading him astray. Then you also have the woman who's married to a man, married, his wife, and she's being a big nudge. She's being hard, she's being difficult. And she's mar mimavet, and she could be more bitter than death. So he's talking about both. Because at the end he says, one who is a yerel, one who's good before Hashem, will be spared from such a woman. Will be spared from the bad one in the street, hopefully. And will be spared from marrying such a woman too. And a sinner will be caught in it. Why will a sinner be caught? Well, a sinner will be caught with the first one because he's asking for trouble. He's a sinner. So he will be caught with such people, Hashem will let him fall. You ask for it, take it. What about the sinner who gets married to one? Well, rabbis tell us that for the most part, most marriages occur because of one's mazal. Zivug Rishon, at least, the first time around, when a person gets married, as long as you behave yourself, as long as you want to get married, as long as you don't push it off, as long as you act normally, as long as you just do what you're supposed to do, you will end up marrying, hopefully, the best match. And the best match, hopefully, will be a good marriage, a good relationship. Sometimes even the best match, something goes wrong. He becomes a gambler, he becomes an alcoholic. And unfortunately, the Gemara says even on these first matches that fall apart, afilu mizbeach morid alav t'maot. It shouldn't happen that they should separate, that they should get divorced. But it can happen too, even the good match. But then you have a zivug that's lefi ma'asav shel adam. It's not the mazal. For some reason Hashem says you're going to be marrying someone like this or like that. And that someone is not the real zivug. But why do you marry them? Because of your ma'asim. Your ma'asim are not so good. You're not so, careful with mitzvot. And certain avirot, unfortunately, are done from time to time. So Hashem says, I can't be mezaveg you with your real soulmate who happens to be a decent person. As the Pasuk says, Lo yipol shevet haresha al goral tzadikim. Hashem will not allow tzadikim to marry reshaim to marry tzadikim, right? They have to be somewhat compatible. So he says, you're a form of rasha in the way you conduct yourself. There's no Shabbat, you don't respect Shabbat, you don't keep kosher, you don't care about tarat mishpacha. Well, I'm going to give you lefi ha'ma'asim shelcha, a woman. And according to one's deeds, if one marries a woman according to one's deeds, it may not be the best for him. Especially if he's looking for money, especially if he's looking for beauty. Hashem says, you want the beauty? You're going to see how rotten she's inside. You'll discover that after Sheva Brachot. Not after a year, after Sheva Brachot. After a week, you'll discover how rotten she is, or he is. It's the other way around too. So, Chaz v'Shalom, one should not have to fall into this kind of situation where Hashem mezaveg lo lefi ma'asav, especially if those ma'asim are no good. There can be lefi ma'asav hatovim. That is in a zivug sheni situation where Hashem says, you know what, the first one is no longer available. I'm going to give you a second one who's from the same shoresh neshama, but he will be according to your ma'asim. You are religious, you are righteous. I'm going to give you a good, righteous person, good person who is compatible to you. And this will be based on ma'asim. So Shlomo Melech says, Hashem Yishmor, that we should not fall in marrying a woman only through our ma'asim. It should be according to the mazal. It should be according to what is really part of our shoresh neshama. So these are the two kinds of situations: either a bad woman from the street or a bad marriage. Rabbis tell us, however, that there is one more drasha over here. Even though it says a woman, a bad woman, an evil woman that misleads you, it's also talking about apikorsut. Many times, if you learned Mishlei, by the way, the whole series of Mishlei is available in EnglishTorahTapes.com. We did this for quite a while. And Mishlei talks about Ishara'ah. And we spoke about how that Ishara'ah does not always mean a woman, but it means also apikorsut, heresy. Heresy, which we just spoke a little bit about, that Shlomo Melech tries to examine and figure out why people are led into that. Here he's telling us that it's dangerous, it's slippery. Be careful with reading even books that have to do with that, because it could lead people astray. I'll tell you a quick story. There was once an individual that came to a shul and waited till they finished davening. And this is what he would do. He would lay out all his used books. You know, today you can buy books, used, new. He would lay out his wares and sell it to people, 50 cents, whatever. That was his parnasah. The rabbi came to examine one of the books. And he says, this is pasul. And he threw it into the bonfire, into the tanur. He says, Rabbi, this is my parnasah. This is apikorsut, but Rabbi, this is my parnasah. You want parnasah, livelihood? I have a job for you. Come back tomorrow morning, I have a new job for you. You don't have to do this. Okay. Came back next morning. The rabbi goes for a walk after shacharit. And as they're walking, he says, you know where we're going? We're going now to the church. He says, to the church? Yeah, he says, the guy who rings the bell retired. They need somebody to replace him. I want you to take the job. Rabbi, you want me to take the job and call people to come to church? He says, that's exactly what you're doing when you're selling books of apikorsut, of heresy. You're calling Jews to come to this, to read it, to absorb it, and to become chas v'shalom like that. What do you think? People will read it and just ignore it? It's dangerous stuff. Missionaries, where do they succeed with the ignorant? They don't know anything. They give them money, and they give them candy, and they give all kinds of things to convince them. They don't know anything. So that's the danger of apikorsut. Apikorsut is, you don't have to believe in anything. That's basically what the Christian religion is. You don't have to believe anything. Just believe in that guy. Just believe in him. That's it. You can do everything else, and he'll forgive you. Right? I mean, that's what it is. No talit, no tzitzit, no pesach, no tefillin, no shabbat, no tarat hamishpacha. This is easy. Chas v'shalom. Right? So isha ra'ah, it can also be talking about the apikorsut. Rabbis tell us that a difficult woman is not easy to get rid of. As the Gemara explains, why don't you just divorce her? That's his tikkun, just divorce her. So the one explanation is it could be he has children. He doesn't want to break up the home. It could be that her ketuvah that he promised her is a couple $1 billion. Not $2 million. Okay?
Not billion.
Yeah.
Million.
Right? So therefore, it's difficult. He has to live with it. And that's why he's struggling. He's going through a hard time. So anyway, the point here is this situation of women, bad women, of course, causes tremendous nefilot, tremendous falls for people who make many mistakes, causes them tremendous troubles in life, especially if they get that woman pregnant, causes them all kinds of terrible consequences that come out from that because he's misled. He's misled and he falls. This causes tremendous sorrow to people. What's included in this, of course, is also the problems of boredom for women. Women who are bored, who have nothing to do, who are not occupied, can come to Chas v'Shalom this kind of trouble by doing things that are wrong. A woman should never be not occupied. Rabbis tell us that if a woman is wealthy and she doesn't need to work, she should still make sweaters or do something. Even if she has many maids, she should still keep busy. A woman should always be doing something. It's not healthy for her, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, for her to be doing nothing. Ashi'amum, the boredom, the batala, can lead to all sorts of troubles. A real quick story of how bad the influence of a woman can be. It's brought down in the Midrash. There was a couple that was struggling. Poor. They were not doing well. He was having a hard time feeding his kids, taking care of them. And the neighbor was fine. The neighbor's kids were well fed. And why were the neighbor's kids well fed? Because their father was a thief. He stole, and whatever he got from stealing, he bought food and he gave his kid. So the one day the wife complains to her husband, look how the next door neighbors are doing so well and we have to have such a struggle. So the husband tells his wife, well, would you want me to do what he does? So she says, yeah. So he says, go ahead and convince that man, it was the man of the house, to accept me in his gang. Sure enough, that's what she did. She went ahead, and convinced the guy, take my husband in. So her husband went out that night to steal together with the gang. They accepted him as a new member. But what he did not know is that night the authorities set up a trap, an ambush. The thieves realized the ambush and they knew all the roads, so they were able to escape. He did not know how to escape, and he was caught and he was hanged. So the Midrash says, look what this woman did to her husband. Because she couldn't take to see the next door neighbor, how they were well fed, how they were doing fine. And she complained and she told her husband, look how she convinced him to actually do something which cost him his life. And which, of course, destroyed her home too. So there are many such examples of how sometimes you want to be careful with the advice that you get at home. Even though it's not fair to say that this is all the time true, because as the Midrash tells us that there were two women who were very, very different from each other. The wife of Korach and the wife of Ben Pelet. One saved his life, and the other one destroyed his life. So it all depends, of course, on the woman. Nonetheless, he says, be careful here. He says, sometimes they can lead you astray. All right, just to finish up with this influence, the bad influence that can come about from women, the commentaries explain over here that many times this happens as a result of man being lured by the beauty, not necessarily by her good deeds, by the beauty. The beauty sometimes acts as a trap. And as a result of that, sometimes men marry women who are not good. And rabbis tell us if you marry a woman for her beauty, the children are not going to be good. That's actually this week's parasha, Eshet Yefat Toar, of taking a woman from war that you caught, taken prisoner, and you want to convert her, you love her, you like her, and you discover after a while that you don't want her. In the meantime, you may have a child, and that child will be a Ben Sorel Umoreh, will be a rebellious child. No good children come out from this kind of marriages that are just for the beauty. Anyway, in the same way that a man has to be careful from falling into this trap, women have to be careful not falling into the trap of marrying such a man. And the only way you can do that, of course, is to be mitpalel, to pray at all times that Hashem should, of course, send you the right one, the good one, the righteous one, not just anybody. It could be a very, very difficult experience to marry the wrong person. All right, just to finish up, as we started before, talking a little bit about ta'ava. Ta'ava is the culprit. Ta'ava is the source of all troubles, the desires, the excessive desires that people have, that cause them to make mistakes, that cause them to get into all sorts of problems in life. The ikar hatrufa, the main remedy for this is learning of Torah. The learning of the Torah will weaken the yetzer. Learning of the Torah will diminish the homer, the physicality of the human being. Because we're physical, because we're made out of earth, we have the desires, we have the wants, and they are the ones that lead us astray sometimes. They are the ones that sometimes get in front of us, right, and interfere with our life. So in recognizing that ta'ava is the source of all evil, if it's excessive, what can one do? Learn Torah, and by the learning of the Torah, that will hopefully have the effect of diminishing the physicality, the chomriyut that we have, by transforming us to be more spiritual people, and by, of course, avoiding the pitfalls that exist in life. This is a very important point. Limud Torah is a very, very potent remedy for keeping us out of trouble. Even though we've spoken a little bit negative about the dangers of certain women, now comes the good news, the punchline of the shiur. Yes, they're dangerous, but you know what? They're the most righteous and the most special people as well, if they are in the category of Eshet Hai Miyimtza. Right? There you have a whole chapter. As much as he's negative over here, there's a whole chapter, which I'm not going to repeat now, about a woman of valor. A woman of valor, that's already a completely different story. That's where he begins that parak with Eshet Hai Miyimtza. Who can find somebody like that? They don't make them anymore. That's what they say.
No, they make them in Esfahan.
Yeah, the people, they say that, once upon a time my grandmother or my great-grandmother, they were, where are they today? People are so spoiled today. It's true. It's not like it used to be, but you can still find. There are still women who are very, very special, each one in their own way. But what makes a woman special, remember, is sheker hachem ve'eved yofi. It's not the beauty, it's not the chen, it's isha yirat Hashem. Ultimately, it will all depend on Yirat Hashem. If a woman has Yirat Hashem, that's right. If a woman has Yirat Hashem, fear of God, hititala, that's something to admire, that's something to want. Obviously, if somebody marries a woman like that, or an individual, a man who is a Bal Torah, Bal Midot Tovot, then the chances are better, of course, that their marriage, their relationship will last. It will not be Chas Shalom in Nefilah. On the contrary, Bezat Hashem, it will be a tremendous aliyah, tremendous source of growth for the both of them. Thank you.
Amen.